Welcome everybody. We are Bill and Hillary Fortune of Forest, Rhode Island. We have a 94-acre tree farm here that we've been working on several practices for the last 20 years now.
I was going to say 20.
Yeah. And some of them we've got grants from NRCS to help implement these practices, and some of them we've done our own. Property for recreation, for a peace of mind, to gather various forest products from, and for letting our friends enjoy as well. We've done a timber stand improvement in approximately, I think, of the 94 acres, over 80 of it has been,
Right.
We've completed a timber stand improvement, and that's was funded by NRCS, and that took over 10 years to get the whole thing done. We've done a lot of work maintaining our forested trails. We also were funded to improve a stream crossing, down some filter fabric, and fix some erosional spots. So approximately 8 years ago, we did our first 3/4 acre patch cut, and that was for wildlife benefit. And last year we added an additional 3/4 of an acre adjacent to it. So now it's up to about a little over an acre and a half at this point.
One of the things that we did was you can see we have different fenced areas where we did plantings for wildlife benefit. And those were all native shrubs. I have my list here, some serviceberry, some chokeberry, some different dogwoods, winterberries, northern wild raisin, nannyberry, highbush cranberry, American hazelnut, elderberry, etc. So there's a whole variety, and they're all planted we had to build the fence enclosures to keep the deer from munching them down before they got big enough to survive on their own. And then as you can see, we have a lot of native blueberries of different types, the high bush, the low bush, the hobble bush, and so forth. So we've kind of selectively kept those too, as well as some of the other shrubbery along the edge to create edge habitat. So it's been, and we also have some plantings with some native grasses and also some native clover blends. We've already seen birds coming back in here. The Woodcocks.
Yeah, so
we're out here mating this spring, so we would sit up by, we have a fire ring up there, and we could sit and listen to the woodcocks and watch their mating dance, and it was really cool. So that was exciting.
And the other thing we've done for wildlife is we've created a couple of brush piles that different things can live in. And one of the things that's always been sort of tricky about this is that as a patch cut, you want to keep it mowed down somewhat, but on the other hand, you want it to go back to a certain level. And so just getting that balance of mowing it enough that it doesn't come back immediately to a mature, or heading toward a mature forest, and yet to keep it to the point where it's good for wildlife is something that you have to constantly be thinking about. And it does need some maintenance. One of the things that was a problem here was that this is in Foster. It's very rocky. So in order to maintain it, my idea was to be able to come in here and mow every couple of years. But to have the number of rocks that we had here just made it really hard to mow. So I had to come in here with a backhoe and pull a lot of rocks out just so I could get it to the point where moving forward it's going to be easier to maintain this patch cuts. So we're back in an area where we did the patch cut approximately 7 years ago, and it grew up pretty good over those 7 years. But last year we sort of mowed it down again, with the exception of the high bush blueberries. Subsequent to that, we came in and did the plantings that we're going to talk about next, and we'll let Hillary explain all that.
Right. So in the cages over along here, we have pagoda dogwoods that have are high value for migrating songbirds, and we planted them also to help create edge or ecotone along the edge to transition from the meadow up to the taller trees surrounding it. And so hopefully those will get to be, I think, approximately 15 to 20 feet high, so they'll create a nice transition zone from the meadow to the forest. One of the things that we find is that if you bring in the insects, and that brings in the birds, and then the birds bring in other species, and so we have this whole like thriving ecosystem happening here. We also actually we have a fisher, because we had a trail cam out over in the back there, and we have a local fisher. We have foxes, coyotes, deer, vultures. Have not seen any bobcats yet. So some parts of the patch cut have different soils and different amounts of moisture. This area over in here there's sort of a swale where during heavy rainfall period, this area actually gets fairly moist, and there's even almost a spring area up in the top there where we can see that there's a lot of moisture because the ferns have been growing there. And this area right here, this is where we put our elderberry shrubs, because it gets afternoon shade, and it also, the soil here stays a little bit moister, because elderberry, they flower and produce berries better with sun, but they also need that moist soil. So we had to find a spot on the property. We knew we wanted elderberries, but we had to find a spot where we could put them in and keep them reliably grown. So these were, everything that was out here we watered when we first planted with buckets of water, but we haven't watered since. So everything, this is all natural rainfall happening, which I guess we were lucky we had a wet spring, but at some point we may need to actually supplement with some, we have a water truck, we have a trailer with a water tank that we can come and water additionally, just to make sure things are really solid. So one of the things that was cool was as we started cutting things down, the native grasses came back. You can see they've been mowed a little bit, but these are just the native bunch grasses that come. It's incredible, because there was 2 or 3 months ago, there wasn't much in the way of grass out here, and it's just come back so lush and in all these patches. And then over there is where that part is the low bush blueberries coming back in again. So you can see where we had to burn some of the brush out here, because there was just way more than we could deal with.
So one of the primary reasons we got so heavily involved in forest conservation was through the efforts of the Rhode Island Forest Conservators Organization, RIFCO, which is a non-profit forest conservation group that's statewide for Rhode Island. RIFCO's mission is for the advocacy of forest conservation, and to help landowners become educated and learn about the different means to gain financial advantages, such as selling timber products and forest products, and tax benefits, and all sorts of great stuff. Alright, we are in an area right now of the patch cut that was pretty much completed a year and a half ago. I've taken a lot of the firewood out and the saw logs out of here. We've created some brush piles, and we've cut up the slash. So the goal for this in the future is sort of like what we have down below, and it's just an ongoing thing where you have to do some maintenance, not an incredible amount of maintenance, but you have to cut it back every once in a while and be cognizant of the the level of growth that you have in here, so that you know what kind of wildlife it's going to be benefiting. One of the things that we have up here that's pretty much like we have down below is a lot of the blueberries, and we also left our mass trees out here. Right over there is a white oak, which is a great wildlife habitat benefit. And there's a couple of red oaks. What was unique about where we did the patch cut before was this was a stand of chestnut oak, and there's not a lot of pure chestnut oak stands. There's still plenty of it around the perimeter, and it was sort of a balance. I mean, I like the chestnut oak, but on the other hand, it's not as great of a timber value as like the red oak or the white oak is. And so it also, based on the topography out here, I sort of came up with this area for the patch cut, and it's sort of sad that we had to get rid of as much chestnut oak as we did, but the benefit is that we have this patch cut. It's something that we really wanted. Another thing that we've been doing out here over the years is creating a network of mountain bike trails. We have approximately 3 miles of trails that meander through the woods all over the place. I'm standing on one of the trails right now, and if you look down below, I mean, there's stones like that I've been moving all over the place just to make it mountain bike friendly. This is relatively tame compared to some of the stuff we have, so we have this extreme mountain biking, bring your helmet.
But some of the trails are also suitable for cross-country skiing.
That's right.
We do a lot of that out here, and that was part of, we have a run from where we were just standing at the top of the hill. We opened up a run that goes all the way down, and then there's a little clearing through the bottom of the clear cut, the patch cut, that goes out onto the road and goes on all the way down the hill to the bottom.
Yeah, so we have this big, long, pretty much a half a mile continuous downhill slope for cross-country
when we get snow.
Hopefully we get some snow again in the winter.
Yeah.
As most of you know, we had a pretty serious gypsy moth defoliation a few years ago, and there's still a lot of the aftermath to that. For us, one of the significant things was we lost a lot of really, really nice timber that would have been saw logs. Behind me there's a bunch of beautiful big red oaks that died. We're in an area right now that's sort of a lowland area. There's wet soil down here. And these trees right there, and there's a bunch of them all through here. A lot of them were 24-inch plus logs, would have been quite marketable and worth some good money. I'm hopefully going to be able to get them out of here in time before they totally deteriorate and they're worthless. But one of the things that happened as a result of all these gypsy moth defoliation, that it created some sunlight for all these other things to come in and start over again. Initially you'd see a lot of grasses, but then some of the smaller trees that were trying to get a foothold in sort of shot up quite nicely. This is a sweet pepper bush that we have down here right now, and this is of wildlife benefit. And the springtime, in the summer, in August when you come through here, and these things flower, and the fragrance is just so heavenly. Another practice that we completed was that of girdling trees, and you can see what we did here is we cut around the circumference of the tree through the bark, and the thing about that is that what it does is it will kill the tree, and it will leave a standing dead tree, which is also for wildlife habitat. They love what's going on up in there. We were actually paid by the NRCS as part of the grant to complete that. It's sort of ironic that we did it, when we did it just before the gypsy moth defoliation. And right now there's so many dead trees as a result of the defoliation from the gypsy moth that there's really no need to be doing this in general. Practice that NRCS funded us to do was to improve our trails. Trails in the NRCS's mind are a little different. I mean, a lot of people would call this a road, but because it's a wooded trail, when you think of a trail, and most people they think of a 2-foot wide hiking path, but in NRCS, our jargon, this is a trail. It's something you can drive equipment in and on. This was pretty rutted before. There was a lot of erosion. It was washing sediment down the hill toward the stream down there. They actually funded us to put a stone down to take care of this erosion and stabilize it. In certain areas, we actually put filter fabric below a few stream crossings where it was really wet. Something that we've been doing on our own also. So this latest round that we've been doing for the last few months, we wanted to do it, and we haven't been getting funding, and We've spread an additional 100 tons of stone out here. We have approximately, I don't know, about a mile and a half of trail road that you can drive on out here, and it's to the point right now where it's in pretty good shape. But when you start driving equipment in and out of it, you tend to create ruts, and it's something you really have to keep on top of. So. Standing in a white pine stand. A stand is a grouping of, or an area where there's a predominant species of trees, and right here it's white pine. One of the reasons for that is the soil type. Pine likes well-drained sandy soils, and the soil around this area is a little different than most of the places. We're high and dry and sandy up in here. Pine grows a lot faster than the oaks, so if you're trying to grow trees and sell them, it's great. We're trying to sell some of these eventually. There's a few of them that are ready for harvest, but what we did was 10 years ago we came through here and did a thinning. One thing that I found sort of ironic about the gypsy moth defoliation was the way it affected the white pines. The larger ones seemed to do fine. The real small ones that you see out in there, they were fine, but it was the medium-sized ones, the ones that were about 4 inches in diameter, plus or minus a few inches, maybe 20 feet tall. A lot of those died. One of the things I've been doing is I've been taking those down just for fire suppression. I mean, they're really dry, and so that's something that's been keeping me busy also. So, wildfire suppression is always something that a landowner should be thinking about, even though it's not as common around here as it is in the western states. But when it does happen, it catches us by surprise. It's something you want to, then you'll be thinking about it. Typical of most forest landowners, we also do firewood. We generate anywhere from 20 to 60 cords of wood a year out here, and most of it goes to friends and neighbors and a few paying customers. But it's part of the doing the timber stand improvement. We don't do the firewood for the money sake of the firewood. It's more about improving the woods for future timber stands.
So this is my apiary, and I got back into beekeeping about 4 years ago. Started out with 1 hive. This year I decided to go to 2, and then one of my, last year my overwintered hive got really ambitious and decided that it needed to swarm, so I actually tried to do swarm prevention and created a split. Now I have 3 hives, and that one actually requeened itself, so it's pretty cool. So we have great pollination in the gardens, and also, like I said, we have all that sweet pepper bush out there. Last year I harvested about 60 pounds of honey. This year it's probably going to be well over 100. These are some of our older shiitake logs. These were actually inoculated in 2011. They still produce the occasional mushroom after a rainstorm event, but they're pretty much spent. You can see the ones on the other side, the bark has actually started falling off them. But we have another set up out behind the barn where we have newer ones that were done 2 years ago, and we also inoculated beech logs for lion's mane mushrooms and comb-toothed mushrooms, which are the hericiums, and those are really high value mushrooms. We got about 5 pounds of mushrooms off them last year. And
we also harvest wild mushrooms from the woods. There's several species that we're familiar with that we can go comfortably take, and that's another thing that we get out of those woods out there that are a benefit. Well, thanks for coming to the tour. We hope you enjoyed it.